Good afternoon, everyone. In the interest, again, of time and making sure that I am not the only thing standing between you and what will surely be a delightful lunch, and also realizing that the other panelists and our session chair will have very valuable things to offer, I'm going to condense some of my remarks and hopefully isolate those that will be most useful. But no matter how brief I might wish to make my presentation, I could never leave out an essential element, which would be to thank the organizers of this event for this wonderful opportunity to participate in this terrific event. And I'm delighted also to see before us both colleagues and dear friends from Virginia and from Virginia, well, the university that I am delighted to represent. So, we have today heard, and particularly in this session, I think several of the broader theoretical issues that are involved in internationalization of education. And what I would like to do is perhaps explore a bit how some of those issues are manifested or come into play in the context of an institution such as ours, which is attempting to increase student and faculty mobility. Now, I've been quite literal in my reading of the term exchange, and so I'm going to limit my remarks to those programs and mechanisms to encourage mobility that are typically the result of agreements between institutions and are based upon expectations of reciprocity and often the symmetry of exchanges. So I think perhaps one of the first questions excuse me, that we ask is, why do we do it? And that was a question asked by several panelists previously today. Thank you. Why do we encourage students or faculty to travel from one country to another for study, teaching, or research? And I think with this crowd here, there'd be no difficulty in discussing the obvious benefits. However, increasingly, those of us in higher education are not simply accountable to our peers, but also to administrators and increasingly to accountants, in which we have to demonstrate a value for that exchange. And so how do we go about doing that? And I think that, as we've talked about today in so many different contexts, fits in with a growing climate of accountability in which we find ourselves. A type of accountability that perhaps is not always comfortable for us as academics, because despite our long history of demanding that our students be accountable for their performance, we've often been rather resistant to having external bodies play much of a role in evaluating our own performance. So in this environment, then, how do we go about measuring and demonstrating the value of what that international experience is, besides something intrinsic or theoretical? As a public university, let me say that Virginia Commonwealth University is an outstanding institution, but perhaps we do not yet enjoy global name brand recognition. So I'll just take a few moments to give a brief overview of our institution. We are a public university, the largest, or one of the largest in the state, the Commonwealth of Virginia, located in the capital city. We're a relatively new university, and that, I think, leads to a certain dynamism and flexibility as an institution of higher learning in the United States. We have approximately 32,000 students, about 33% of them are graduate or professional students, and in terms of academic offerings, have one of the finest schools of the arts in the United States, as well as one of the finest schools of medicine and teaching hospital complex and research center, and just about everything in between. So we offer a fairly wide gamut of academic programs. We're a university that's also been characterized by a very profound commitment to community service. We've been recognized nationally for our excellence as a community partner, and so a component in the education of many of our students is an active engagement in the community that is not seen simply as some sort of act of charity, but rather a very valid means of enriching the learning experience for the student, and not perhaps just about the way, the meaning and the implications of a discipline within the classroom, but its implications in a broader social context. So, Having said that, then as a public university, our mission, our charter that's been given to us, is to serve the citizens of Virginia. And so then how do we go about explaining or justifying requests for resources? Because we know that exchanges, student and faculty mobility, they're not easy and they're relatively cost-free, right? They're going to be costly in terms of financial resources, time, effort, often resourcefulness, ingenuity of making things work on both sides of the exchange. So how do we go about justifying those requests? And to do so, I think we need to talk about then the value of such an experience in two terms, both an internal value, what is the benefit, the internal benefit for the individual who participates in that exchange, and then what is the external value, the value to that institution. And so we believe that since our mission is to prepare students for an increasingly globalized world, we are aware that regardless of the discipline of their field, and regardless of where they plan to work, the graduate of tomorrow will have to be able to successfully navigate a variety of borders, be they linguistic, cultural, religious, but dealing with difference and successfully dealing with difference will be one of the requirements for success in any field. And so we believe that we enrich the learning environment by increasing the presence of international students and faculty on our campus. A university of about 30,000 students, we currently have an enrollment of approximately 1,600 international students. The largest population from India and the second largest from China. Many of the students, as you will not be surprised, are drawn to specific programs, often professional, our School of Engineering, School of Business. Much to the sadness of our colleagues in the humanities, it seems that very few students from India or China or Saudi Arabia are very motivated to come study English literature at our university, or their parents perhaps as well. But nonetheless, how do we go about then if we say this will bring a benefit to our university? How do we go about measuring that? How do we go about defining it? I think this is really one of the keystones of a process of internationalization for universities everywhere now, is what are those learning outcomes that we expect for our students that we can predict, aim for, measure, and then report upon. We know that many of us involved in this business, so to speak, up till now have largely been involved in head counting, where we say we're successful because this year 10% more students went abroad, 5% more professors came in. Those numbers tell us something, but I think they really only tell us a very small part of the story. I think no one here will doubt that often that international experience can enrich an education, but it's more than that. It is often transformative. I know that for myself, and I'm certain that many here in this room would say that their first international experience really marked them and had a profound impact on their future, both professional and personal. So if we're pursuing that transformation, I think we also need to be very cognizant of the fact that the exchange, that transformation is not automatic. It does not happen automatically. We know, we're aware of situations in which that contact actually may produce the opposite effect that we desire. We see, we see cases in which, for example, group programs, work has been done, how often the internal dynamics of a group that's traveling to another country may actually reinforce negative stereotypes and misunderstandings of the culture. So, out of respect for the clock and everyone's time here, let me just, I think, wrap up with my principal point, and that is, if we seek that transformation, then we need to anticipate how we will structure the experience, both of international students coming in and our students going out. It can't be like a chemistry experiment where we think you just add one of this and one of this and leave them alone in a room and some kind of transformation will happen. Students need to be prepared, faculty as well, prepared to deal with cultural difference and the experiences that they're going to have. And as institutions, we can play a leading role in developing those kinds of structured programs going to measure and report on their outcomes. So I'll stop here. I'll be delighted to talk with anyone further about this in detail, and I again thank the organizers of this event.